Look how short.
Up, yeah. You would see it.
Jeff, forewarning.
Don't you have a
Thank you.
Chicken pie?
You have it.
We won't have it, I'm having it, we won't have it, Frank.
I have no doubt about that.
Graham difference.
We're good, thanks.
Trevor, we good? Good evening, everyone, and I'll call this July 9th Ashburn City Council meeting to order. Thank everyone for being here. And at this time, we would have a moment of silent prayer. Thank you, everyone, for your blessings. This time, please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you, everyone. We have a few items on the agenda tonight, cases to get to, but first we'll conduct the old business that's still pending. Trevor, if you can present to us the quasi-judicial hearing calling the case, please. Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Moffitt. If you would go ahead and reopen the public hearing, sir.
At this time, we will reopen the public hearing for case RZ-CUP-20-01.
Thank you. This matter was last continued at your June meeting. Since that meeting, the applicant has changed the request from a general B2 district to a conditional use B2 district request, and is seeking a permit for rental and sales of domestic vehicles. The matter now, therefore, is a quasi-judicial proceeding, and any person wishing to speak during the hearing must be placed under oath prior to addressing the council, providing evidence. Mr. Moffitt, now would be an appropriate time for myself and anyone else who knows that they wish to speak to step forward and be placed under oath by the city clerk.
As requested by Mr. Nuttall, anyone that's wishing to speak, please come forward at this time.
You confirm that the evidence you shall give this council shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. Since the council has already received information on this property and the zoning part of this application, I'm not going to spend as much time on the zoning analysis, and instead going to focus more on the conditional use permit application. But real quickly, just to look at and recap the summary. The applicant is the property owner on this request, Brandon Allen. We're looking at property at 137 North Randolph. There's one Randolph pin involved in this request. It's just over 3/10 of an acre in size. There is no structure on the property. It's currently undeveloped. Formerly, there was a single family dwelling on the property. You can see the subject parcel is outlined in red up on the map here. It is at the intersection of Randolph Avenue and East Salisbury Street. If you look in a little closer at the property, you'll note the pink zoning denotes a neighborhood commercial designation, which is that color to the north. To the west is Allen Automotive property that is already zoned B2 General District. To the northeast, you will see Mercantile and Conditional Use Office and Apartment, which is a Creative Pools property. And then directly east and south is residential zoning denoted by the olive and the yellow colors. We do have city services available to this lot. With services in Randolph, there are no environmental features on this property that would be problematic for development. Here's an aerial map of the subject parcel and surrounding development, give you a better idea of what is occurring in this vicinity. But again, we have commercial uses to the west and north, residential generally to the east and south. I do have some photographs that were actually taken today. The subject property, this is as seen from North Randolph Avenue. This is looking south along North Randolph. This is turning around looking back at East Salisbury Street, Randolph Avenue intersection. And this is the view of the property as seen from East Salisbury Street. Now we're looking west along East Salisbury Street and then east along East Salisbury Street. Real quickly, property is in the city limits. East Salisbury Street is a state maintained major thoroughfare. North Randolph is a city maintained street. The 2014 transportation plan did identify Highway 42 as in need of some improvements due to some capacity issues. The city has submitted a request to DOT to consider a future widening of East Salisbury Street from Elm Street to East Salisbury 42 split. We expect to have an idea of whether that will be funded probably by February 2022 when that plan draft is released. The B2 district, again, this is conditional use B2 request, but it is intended to serve retail service needs of the motoring public and should always be located with access directly to a minor thoroughfare or higher classification street. As we look at the land development plan for some guidance, that arrow points to the intersection of North Randolph and East Salisbury Street. You'll see that intersection is colored red, denoting a recommendation for more commercial use of this property. As we further dig into the land development plan, we find under goals and policies, there tend to be several that, in fact, 8 that tend to support this request, 2 that tend to be more negative towards this request. Overall, staff and planning board present this to council with a favorable recommendation. Before I go any further, I would like to say that the staff did go ahead and resend legal notice pertaining to this case to adjoining property owners as well as in the courier due to the length of time that this case has been ongoing and the fact that the request was changed to conditional use district. The reason for staff's recommendation, as I pointed out, those goals and policies in support of the request, but we do believe that the commercial designation is supported by not only the land development plan, but also the current zoning for the north and west of the property. It's fairly close to the center city activity area, which is advocating for a mix of compatible uses. And most noteworthy now, the conditional use process can ensure that any proposed use is not out of character with surrounding land uses. I'm going to move into now the conditional use permit analysis and the specifics of the development proposal for this property. I'm going to distribute site plans. As I noted earlier, this is a permit request for one specific use, and that is for the rental and sales of domestic motor vehicles. As you'll see on the site plan, there are no structures proposed as a part of this application. Only a gravel display area that would be used for vehicles for sale or rent. The display of those vehicles would be placed on the property. The office for the proposed land use, motor vehicle sales or rentals, is actually located on the adjoining Allen Automotive property. Also of note, as you look at that site plan, it does show access from the adjoining property, the Allen Automotive property, into this property. That property has a driveway off East Salisbury Street. You'll notice that this site plan labels that existing drive off Randolph Avenue as not acceptable for access due to that location, the location of that driveway from the intersection with East Salisbury Street. Also note, the site plan proposes a solid wooden fence and evergreen plantings on the south side of the property adjacent to the adjoining home. That is consistent with the city's zoning ordinance. Front yard landscaping consisting of shrubs is also proposed along the first 10 feet of the frontage of the property along East Salisbury Street and Randolph Avenue. Again, consistent with the city's development regulations. Also, we'll note, because we've had some questions, the zoning ordinance and city code generally prohibit outdoor storage of any junk motor vehicle and junk materials, and no open storage of materials is proposed and therefore would not be permitted on the property. For the benefit of folks out in the audience, this is the site plan that council has, again, showing the subject parcel, the access from the adjacent property to the west with no access from North Randolph, and the proposed landscaping to comply with the city's ordinance. Staff, after reviewing this application, does propose a few conditions to ensure compliance. Number one, since that driveway is too close to the intersection and is not permitted and there is not an alternate proposed, we do recommend council condition any permit should you find evidence to grant this request. We do propose a condition that would prohibit access from North Randolph Avenue for the subject parcel. In addition, staff, if there is any outdoor lighting that is to be installed on the property, we recommend a condition be applied that does require the submission of lighting details to staff for review for compliance prior to installation. And lastly, that the landowner execute the memorandum of land use restrictions as prepared by the city attorney. Up on the screen here are the 4 findings of fact that are required for a conditional use permit to be granted. I'll be happy to answer any questions or turn it over to the applicant.
Any questions?
Just one, Mr. Taylor. Trevor, was any discussion with respect to hours of operation? Their condition, proposed condition?
There was none.
Trevor, there would not be any access off East Salisbury, is that correct?
The site plan shows access coming from the adjacent commercial property. We are not proposing a condition that would preclude access from East Salisbury if they wanted to pursue that with the DOT. We are, however, recommending prohibition from Randolph.
And that would, if desired, that'd be a DOT matter.
Correct.
Anyone else? If not, we'll hear from the applicant.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I understand that this council is well aware of this property due to the saga and my client Brandon out. In light of some neighbors having some concerns, we've come forward with a conditional use B2. And with the assistance of your fine planning department, they came up with a site plan, which I hope everybody has in front of it. And it addresses some of the concerns, especially those of Owen George. I'd like to respectfully just ask Trevor a few questions to reinforce a couple of points that the city had in their report. Trevor, on page 2 of your staff report, the city noted that the rezoning is compliant with proposed land use map. Is that correct? Basically, land development plan.
Yes, sir.
And further, that the proposed conditional use B2 district, Mr. Allen, also complies with the growth strategy map, is what I read in your report.
Yes, sir.
And third, it is consistent with the land category description. That's correct, isn't it?
Correct.
And that the property is not in a watershed. Is that correct? Further, that you didn't see any negative environmental impact because there's not a steep slope there, and also the fact that the soil appeared to be in fair condition, wasn't poor. That's correct.
Correct.
So, one of the key components that you've noted to the council is that access to this property will not come from Randolph Avenue. Is that correct?
Correct.
And as a result, there won't be trucks or cars going through the neighborhood. Access will come through the adjacent lot of Allen Automotive off of the East Salisbury. Is that correct?
Direct access, yes, sir.
So, in your site plan, was it submitted that a wooden buffer fence beside the residential area with evergreens and landscaping according to your ordinances to be installed there?
Yes, the plan proposes a 6-foot wooden fence and shrubs.
And right now, there's no growth there. It's just an empty lot beside that house based on what Mr. Gatlin and I saw this afternoon.
That does be the
Looked
case,
at
yes,
it.
sir.
Now, and I understand that the city has guidelines on outdoor lighting, especially how the light will diffuse on the property, but those are set forth in your ordinance. So he'll just need to work in compliance with your department on that if this is approved. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, if, in your opinion, Trevor, if they develop this lot according to the site plan that's submitted in light of that commercial thoroughfare on East Salisbury Street, would you agree that this would be consistent with the land use and land development plan as we talked about? It would be consistent with it?
Yes, as noted in the report, we do believe the zoning to be consistent with the land development recommendations.
And basically, this conditional use would put, in your opinion, do you think this conditional use would address the concerns of neighbors concerning the use of that property? Because in a straight rezoning legislative, there's a myriad number of uses, and this will specifically set forth a use that will run with the land. Mr. Jeff Sugg will record a permit. If the council approves it, it'll be recorded at the register of deeds. Is that correct?
Yes, if approved, one use would be authorized on the property.
Thank you. The city of Asheboro, like most cities, has 4 standards, and they're set forth in your application for conditional use, and they're set forth in your ordinance, section 1000. But basically, it talks about use want to impair or materially endanger public health or safety. Based upon the inference coming off of East Salisbury, would you agree that steps have been taken to try to address keeping this traffic off a residential street of Randolph Avenue by the applicant?
If that condition is agreed to, yes, I believe so.
And would you agree that the use meets all the required conditions and specifications?
The site plan has been reviewed by the city review points, and it is found to be compliant.
Thank you. And this plan, this request has been recommended by staff and the planning board, is that correct?
The rezoning request, yes, sir.
I have no further questions of Trevor. I'd like to call Mr. John Gatlin. We'll try to stand 6 feet apart. You stand right over there.
Okay.
Do you think you can hear him?
Yeah.
Will you state your name? for the
John Gatlin.
And Mr. Gatlin, what's your profession?
I'm a real estate broker with Remax Realty in Asheboro,
And how long have you been a realtor?
20 years.
And prior to that, what business were you in?
I also did residential construction, 20 years.
And to be a realtor in North Carolina, what kind of continuing education requirements are required to keep your license?
Every year, we have to do 8 hours of continuing education.
So, have you had an opportunity to review Mr. Brandon Allen's parcel on East 137 North Randolph Avenue?
Yes, I have.
And did you also have an opportunity to view the modified request that he's made for a conditional use?
Yes.
D2. And did you have an opportunity to view the site plan?
Yes.
Please address the site plan as it relates to adjoining properties that surround this site.
I reviewed the site plan and the general area around the property, and looked it over, and Randolph Street is a residential street, of course, but looking down the Salisbury part of it, standing on the lot, looking around, basically all you see is commercial properties. You see the creative pools across the street, the car wash, some convenience stores, and pretty much from that point all the way up toward the city, moving into the city on Fellow Street. It's basically all commercial, and that's kind of what's going on in Salisbury in general. It's going all commercial.
And how does it relate to, as you move forward toward the center city of Asheville, how does the properties change as you go up in Salisbury?
Basically, from that Randolph Street Avenue going toward Fellow Street, you may have 6 to 7 houses residential left. Everything else is on some sort of commercial.
Previously, what was on this property, do you know?
This was a location where a house was that gone in disrepair over the years.
And what happened to that house based on your recollection?
My recollection is it was a house that was abandoned. The city took it in and used it as a training for the city fire department, and it was in a controlled burn.
Now, that property, what is, in your opinion, professional opinion, what's the prospect of someone putting a home place, a residential home place on that lot on East Salisbury Street?
That particular lot location, due to the fact of the commercial and traffic and all along Salisbury Street, I don't see it as a desirable place for a residential home. So I think the ideal for this particular lot would be to go commercial.
And that, have you had a chance to, you have a recollection of how long that property's been vacant since the control burn?
It was roughly 2014, I think it was, that the house was burned, and then the city cleaned the lot and then basically sowed grass over it. It's been that way for the last 5-6 years.
Did you have an opportunity to hear the staff summary, Mr. Nuttall, concerning this rezoning?
Yes.
And based upon your 20-some years of experience in real estate, do you have an opinion as to the contents of that staff report concerning this conditional use rezoning?
Yes, I do.
And what is that opinion?
My opinion is based on what I've seen on the recollection and all for the county, for the city, and what the site plan has and stuff, I feel like it's in guidance to what should be going on along Salisbury Street.
And based on your 20 years experience in the real estate field in Randolph County, do you have an opinion whether this conditional use B2 rezoning would substantially injure the adjoining property owner's value?
Yes, I have an opinion on that.
And what's your opinion?
My opinion on it is I don't think it will have an impact on the neighbors on Randolph Avenue. They're going to be putting up a 6-foot privacy fence separated from the residential house directly behind it. Along that time, there'll be also some shrubs planted, the Leland cypress or something like evergreen, and they'll eventually take growth. So eventually, when you ride through, you'll just see a row of trees, and all the residential will be kind of tucked behind that. And I think the impact alone for residential will be zero on that.
And based on your years' experience as a realtor, do you have an opinion that if this property is developed according to the site plan as submitted to the city, whether it be in harmony with the area around East Salisbury Street and Randolph Avenue, in light of the resubmitted conditional use request?
Yeah,
And what is your, do you have an opinion?
yes.
And what is that?
I think once everything's done and it follows the guidelines of what the city put in place, there'll be no impact residential, and we'll follow what's going on already on Salisbury, which has been commercially developed from one end to the other and is rezoned. So I think in the final stages, what it will look like, it will just go along with everything else that's already there. And when the fence is put up, privacy fence is put up behind it, the fence along Salisbury Street will be in matching of the Allen Automotive property, and it will just look like one continuous property. And I think for that reason, it will not hurt or affect anything to do with the future.
If someone said this property line along these Salisbury's was in transition, would you agree with that statement?
Yes,
And why would you agree?
just for the fact of what's happening along Salisbury. I mean, if, most of the houses are gone, to some sort of, rezoning to commercial, and the vacant lots where the disrepair areas are all starting to be rezoned commercial and being rebuilt for something else.
Are there any streets other than Nashville that you think are similar?
Yeah, there's some very similar, I mean, Cox Street's following the same pattern, from one end to the other. Cox Street is all being slowly redeveloped to, commercial. I think Salisbury's on the same thing, and it's just one of the main 5 streets in town, and I think that's for that reason it is in kind of following the same pattern as Cox Street.
I have no further questions.
Thank you very much.
I just need to summarize briefly, if you allow me to do so. And I don't know if anybody has any questions of Mr. Gatlin.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wilford or Mr. Guy?
I do have a question, Ms. Willard. Ms. Willard, as you may or may not know, Mr. Allen's been here several times.
Yes.
And even though we did not ask him, he shared with us his intent previously. He did not share he did share his intentions about what has ultimately become forced tonight. He did speak previously about hours of operation and his anticipated hours. And there are no conditions in the conditional use request as it relates to hours of operation. I was wondering if the applicant would be amenable to some condition as it relates to hours of operation for that concern.
That subject did not come up, but I would hope reason and wisdom would regulate operation hours, especially due to the residential neighborhood beside of it. I did speak with John Evans and Trevor, the lighting aspect, because especially when you do schools, you want the light diffused downward. You don't want a ballpark situation. I will say that, and this is for council's benefit, I did meet with Owen George and invited him to come tonight, and I know that, I don't hope he's not outside, but we met and also contacted your city department on a conference call and went through the site plan so there would be no misunderstanding about what conditions that the city was addressing.
But I hope he's not relying on Mr. Allen's previous assertions as to the hours of operation in as much as it's not a required condition should we grant the request. And so that presupposes my question.
Well, part of
If
it
it would be
is,
amenable to hours of operation.
I know the convenience stores are open late, but I'm trying to sit there and figure out what car lots I know that are open late at night.
I'm not aware of any, and
I'm not
as
aware of
as you indicated, the reason may dictate that, but, you know, in my line of work, my day line of work, a lot of people are not reasonable.
I understand.
Here's the successful practice.
Well,
Yeah, job security. But I think, just briefly, I do think they've met all the 4 components and standards, and the staff report reflected that. We can certainly, look, I'm not quite sure, I don't remember the hours of most of the automobile places around town. Some of them stay a little later in the summertime because it's daylight, but,
I'm gonna make
Trevor has any response to that or not?
If I can ask Mr. Gatlin.
Yeah.
Should this be operated 24/7, do you think that would impact the value of residential neighborhoods adjacent or adjoining or nearby?
Well, I don't think it would necessarily, I don't think the purpose of this would be a 24/7 type job.
I understand.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, as far as being zoned just one specific type of zone.
Yeah.
If we had a B2 zoning, you know, yeah, that could be a different, you know, you could have an all-night convenience store or whatever, but with a car lot, I do know that the current Allen Automotive, beside of it, who is involved in this, their hours are 8 to 5. Wouldn't foresee them doing anything different, but, you know, I'm not gonna say that, but that's kind of
I could see maybe if they wanted to run the car lot a little later.
Yeah.
You know, but not, I don't think it'd go past even 9 o'clock. I mean, I don't think Mr. Allen's gonna be out there selling cars in the winter time in the dark.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. I really think.
Thank you, that's all.
All right. Thank you very much for consideration. I know you got a lot of other agenda items. Thank you. And I want to thank the staff for working very vigorously to come up with a resolution.
Your Honor, if I don't mind, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask also about do they accept the conditions explicitly? It was implied, but I'd just like to get it on the record that they accept.
Oh, dishes are set for? Yeah,
Are the conditions as set forth acceptable to that?
that's understood. Thank you.
Recognizing it may change, depending on discussion, what's moving forward now.
Would it also be appropriate to ask if there's anyone else in the audience to speak towards this item, for or against? Hearing none, we'll move forward with action on the item. Do we have any discussion or motion?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would feel better about this if we had some restrictions as it relates to hours of operation. I'm going to go on faith, contrary to my day job. This will be conducted in such a manner as previously submitted to council unofficially. And a move to approve the request for the conditional use B2 rezoning, subject to the conditions that are acceptable to the applicant and as proposed by staff. And based on the staff's recommendations and consistency with the land development plan.
We have a motion of faith from Councilor Bell. We hope it goes forward correctly. Do we have a second?
Second.
Can we just clarify, if you don't mind? It works better as we set out the decision document if we just have two separate actions.
Okay,
And I didn't hear,
Place it in the district.
and I heard it as a combined motion that was for both consistency statement and for rezoning. And then we'll get to the conditions, if that's agreeable. That's how we'll interpret the motion.
yes, that's the way it was intended,
That's what.
inartfully as it was.
Just in order for my hearing, that was all the issue.
I believe we're all in agreement. We have placed it in the zone at this time. But
We got a motion.
we now would like to have a motion on the conditional. use.
I think we have to vote.
We hadn't had a vote on
We haven't had.
We have a
all in favor?
motion. Second.
Motion is passed.
Who was the
Well, we
second?
need to call on Linda.
Yes, we did. Who was the second? We had a motion, Mr. Rowe, who was the
That's the reason I
second?
thought it was a vote that has to be second.
And we'll put it down to Ms. Snuggs then.
Ms. Snuggs.
Second.
Ms. Carter. Yes.
Linda?
Yeah.
How do you vote on the item? Aye. Ms. Carter is an aye.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, based on our previous action there, I would then move that we grant the conditional use permit with the conditions proposed as the site plan also.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Burke. All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion is passed. Linda? Linda, we have a vote on the conditional use permit? Aye. Now we have unanimous vote. It was passed, but now we have unanimous. Well, congratulations. I have one more problem.
See you. Thanks.
Thank y'all for coming out.
Thank you.
And thank Mr. Allen for his patience on the matter as well. Well, catch back up. Next on the agenda before us is the consent agenda. Does anyone have any items that they would like to pull out for further discussion that is on the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Mr. Bell has moved, we approve the consent agenda as presented. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second for Mr. Burks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Carter? Ms. Carter's voted aye. Consent agenda. If the consent agenda is passed, our next item up. Mr. Nuttall, is RZ -20-07.
Thank you, Mr. Moffett. The applicant, yes, this case involves a zoning request to a general district. So it's not necessary for speakers to be placed under oath for this matter. This is RZ 20-07, a request to rezone from R10 medium density residential to R7.5 medium density residential for property located at 435 Old Liberty Road. The applicant on this request is the property owner, Mr. Darren Hackett. There is one Randolph County PIN associated with this request totaling approximately 2 acres. Presently, there is one single family dwelling on the parcel. And I will note at this time that legal notices concerning this case were mailed to adjoining property owners on Tuesday, June 23rd. The appropriate publications has run in the Courier Tribune pertaining to public notice. Looking at the overview map for this case, you'll see the subject parcel outlined in red in the middle of the screen. This is the property that's located at the intersection of Old Liberty Road and East Bailey Street. The yellow color on the screen is R10 medium density residential zoning, which includes the subject parcel. You'll see to the northeast and not far from this parcel, we have a significant portion of D2 commercial zoning, general district. Obviously, as you move west over to the Fayetteville Street corridor, you'll see the commercial zoning on that corridor. And so a lot of yellow on this property denoting medium density residential, but we do have a significant portion of long-standing commercial zoning in this area. As we zoom in a little closer, you'll get information on some adjoining property owners, as well as a better idea of proximity to the commercial zoning to the northeast, as well as you'll see office and institutional zoning to back towards the west. This property is in the city limits and is served by city services. We have water both in East Bailey and in Old Liberty Road. Of note on this property is a city sewer outfall that kind of bisects the property from southwest to northeast. This is a aerial photo of the property to give you an idea of the development pattern for the area. That existing dwelling on this property is kind of in the northern portion of the property. That blue line is a stream where the city also has our sewer outfall. And other than that, the property is undeveloped and there is no regulated floodplain on the property. This is a view of the subject parcel as seen from Old Liberty Road. We're now standing at the intersection of East Bailey Street and looking at the subject parcel. This is looking northeast along Old Liberty Road, and you start to see the commercial enterprise on the right side of the screen, and then a manufactured home park further in the background of the photo that is also zoned B2 general commercial. We're now turning around looking southwest along Old Liberty Road. And this is a view looking west along East Bailey Street with the subject parcel towards the bottom right of that picture. Very quickly, in terms of analysis on this request, again, the property is located in the city limits. Old Liberty Road is maintained by NCDOT. It is classified as a minor thoroughfare. The city maintains East Bailey Street, which we view as a collector street that provides access between North Fayetteville Street and Old Liberty Road. The current R10 district and the requested R7.5 5 district. It's important to note, both of these allow both single-family and two-family dwellings. The difference is the requested R7.5 district allows slightly smaller lot sizes, and the setbacks for the R7.5 are less than the R10 district. The R10 stands for 10,000 square foot minimum lot sizes. R7.5 stands for 7,500 square foot minimum lot sizes. Again, if we look at adjoining land uses, we find primarily single and two-family dwellings in the area with a scattering of non-residential uses along Old Liberty Road, particularly to the north. Again, there is a space, stream as well as a city sewer easement on the property. We do inform the applicant that DEQ may need to be contacted prior to any land activity that impacts that stream. And also that the city's easement must be kept clear from encroachment as well. If you look at the land development plan recommendation, you'll see that this is designated as neighborhood residential. It's described as intended to accommodate existing medium density, single-family residential neighborhoods while encouraging new neighborhoods of similar density to provide a sense of community. As we look at specific goals and policies contained within the land development plan, we believe that there's 5 that tend to be supportive of this request. We believe that there's 1 that tends to be not supportive towards this request. In terms of our complete analysis and our consideration of whether this request is consistent with the city's plan of development and in the public interest, we note that the requested R7.5 does retain this very similar medium density characteristics to the current R10 district. It allows 1 dwelling per zoning lot. It does permit single and two-family dwellings. We have a total of a slight increase, obviously, in density potential for this property, whereas the current zoning may allow up to 8 single-family homes or 5 two-family lots. If this request is approved, you could potentially see 11 single-family homes and 7 two-family dwellings, or 7 two-family dwellings. We know that its location on a minor thoroughfare does aid in the request, and we do find some transitional characteristics of this property with some commercial activities along the Liberty Road and moving into our more historic R10 longstanding zoning for the area. This request comes to you with a favorable recommendation from both staff and the planning board. 2 actions for consideration this evening on a consistency statement and obviously the rezoning request. Now we happy to answer any questions, Mr. Moffitt, or turn it over to the applicant if they wish to address them.
Any questions for Mr. Nuttall?
While it does potentially increase the density, that is the number of single-family residences, otherwise it appears that the basis of it really is set back in road frontage requirements.
Correct. Lot width is slightly reduced in the R7.5 and a lot smaller lot sizes, and those reduced setbacks give some flexibility to development.
That's all I have.
Any other questions? At this time, we'll call for anyone to come forward to speak for this request. Is there anyone here to speak for the request? Well, is there anyone here to speak against the request? Is there anyone here to speak about the request at all? Well, being none, I guess we'll move on to deliberation or entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, based on staff's recommendation and their stated consistency statement with the land development plan, I move that we approve the rezoning request from R10 to R75.
There a motion from Mr. Bell to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Swears. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Carter, your vote? Aye. Ms. Carter has voted aye. Motion is passed. The zoning is granted. And Mr. Nuttall, the next item is RZ-20-08.
Thank you, Mr. Moffett. This is a request to rezone property on the west side of Meadowbrook Road, extension and north side of Honeysuckle Road, from R15 and R10. The parcel is actually, has two zonings currently. It's taking the entirety of the property to the R10 zoning district. The applicant on this case, which is the same applicant as the preceding case, has submitted a written request to continue this matter. Staff does recommend this case to be continued to council's August 6th meeting.
There is a request for continuance. Do we have a motion to continue this?
I move we continue it based on the request of petition.
There is a motion by Mr. Bell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Snuggs. All in favor, please say aye. Ms. Carter? Ms. Carter has voted aye. Motion is passed for continuance to August.
Thank you.
Next item, agenda 5C, our update on the US 64 proposed widening to bypass 49 interchange.
Real quickly, council, I recently was contacted by NCDOT regarding U 5813, which is the planned highway project to widen Highway 64 to multi-lanes from the bypass to just east of the interstate, as well as reconstruction of the Highway 49 interchange and a modification to the interchange at 7374. Port and DOT design and right-of-way efforts have continued to progress on this project, and DOT is now at the point that they are requesting from the city confirmation of our intention to cost share sidewalk improvements for the project, which I have placed a map up on the screen here. Those highlighted portions give you an idea of where this project falls within the city limits. Of course, the project itself goes further west out towards the bypass, but this is a portion within the city's jurisdiction. Those highlighted areas, essentially from Mack Road to McDonald's on Dixie Drive and up past the interstate on Highway 49, is the extent of this project and the consideration to cost share on sidewalk improvements for the project. I'll note that without the city's participation in the funding for this component of the project, it will not include sidewalks, which are recommended based on the city's adopted transportation plan. And in fact, this map up on the screen is our adopted transportation plan showing recommended pedestrian improvements. So you'll see that those anything that's dashed on this map is indicated as recommended for construction or improvement. Preliminary estimates for the sidewalk to be included based on DOT engineering estimates are $386,000. That's the total project cost. The city would be responsible for 30% or roughly $116,000 for the project. We looked at this, we believe, and from our experience with investigating other sidewalk design and construction projects, we do believe this is a good value, and it does implement a recommendation of our adopted transportation plan. So I therefore do request council's concurrence to allow the city manager to submit the requested letter of intent to DOT that would indicate our desire for the project to include sidewalks and also our intention to cost share on the project. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I do, if council's interested, I do have a slide that shows the project in greater detail if you'd like to see that. But our aim here this evening is to get council's concurrence to cost share based on this preliminary estimate.
Chairman, further clarify, now this is the project, it's essentially the replacement of the bridge,
Correct.
the 49 bridge over 64.
Correct. That's included with some the widening of 64,
Yes.
well, after the bypass, it's all lumped into one project.
And that area does have some pedestrian traffic at this time, and probably could have more, so I just wanted, the way it was worded about the 64 bypass, I was wondering if I be clear on which project we were talking about as a proposed project.
And this may help, this is the latest,
There you go.
DOT plan, that I was able to download from their website. Right in the middle of the map is the, interstate, and you can see the various improvements, associated with this project, including bridge replacement. There's a new service road, proposed that would connect Lambert to Mack Road. You can see various, realignments of streets, so this is a fairly complex.
I believe we did have a preview of this project, the Methodist Church.
Correct, there was a public information, session on this, as well.
Well, and it's a value purchase to say the least. I'm more concerned that the state can come up with their 70% right now. That's a matter not of our purview. Does this require action of our part, a motion, or
Yeah, there could be a motion of concurrence.
being suspended?
Correct.
And so,
Do we have a motion to participate in the sidewalk construction on the proposed DOT project in front of us?
Mayor, I move we authorize the city manager to have a statement of intent to share in the cost of this project.
We have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Mr. Burks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Carter? Ms. Carter, she loves sidewalks, yes. The motion has passed.
thank you, council.
Trevor, did that give you an indication about timeframe?
I
Revised
figured that
timeframe?
would be asked. I do not, no.
He can't, I can.
I will tell you the latest, and this was pre-pandemic, what we were hearing that was that completion fiscal year 2024. I certainly think that with the current climate, that is subject to change.
We have time to save up.
Yes, sir.
We have 4 minutes. Oh, man. At this time, that clears the community development type agenda items. It's kind of a public comment period. Do we have anyone from the general public wishing to address the council? Good evening.
Good evening.
Please state your name for the record and share with us what you would.
My name is Levitt Blige. For those of you who know and those that don't know, I am the son-in-law of the Reverend Dr. Dora Atlas. I think they're all aware that she passed away last year in March. Sometimes it's difficult when you're clearing out items left that loved ones that have left us. But in doing so, I found a document. I don't know when she wrote it. I don't know what she wrote it for. All I know is the content of this is so powerful that I thought that it belonged in the city record. Now, if I had my druthers, I would rename this Wisdom from the Grave. But as such, I want to read what she wrote verbatim. So her title is Save the Children by Dora Atlas. Asheboro has been designated as an indigent area. It is extremely lacking in its provisions for youth throughout the entire city. When the needs of young people in our community should be on our list of priorities, when the needs of young people in our community should be high on our list of priorities, they appear to be at the bottom. Youth all over the city of Asheboro are in need of positive recreational programs. However, it is obvious that the east side is deprived of recreational facilities for youth. Why the city has not already made provisions for our young people remains an unanswered question in my mind. Transportation to the few recreational sites is not available. Distance is a hardship for young children. Many of our families cannot afford membership at a facility like the YMCA, even if transportation was provided. It is a known fact that children should be engaged in wholesome activities to help them grow socially, emotionally, physically, and educationally. They learn from being involved in structured fun activities. It is through these activities that youth learn to communicate their thoughts, problem solve, and make good decisions. They have opportunities to develop leadership skills as well as team skills as they interact with their peers. So what do? Sit back and say, these are not my children. My children are grown and have moved away from the community. I no longer live in the community. It's not my concern. It is important for us all, wherever we may be in life, to realize that we did not get where we are alone. We stand on the shoulders of many who worked hard and sacrificed much. I have a particular interest in the Eastside Community Center. This center is a historical site dating back to when it was the only school in Asheboro for African Americans. That building holds memories of many who were housekeepers, maids, and blue-collar workers that valued education regardless of the number of years completed in school. It was also a place where many got their start and went on to become teachers, nurses, doctors, and lawyers, contributing to society. Today, that facility represents a safe haven for our children. It represents hope. It represents a path to a positive life. Let's not let that facility be lost. It is our responsibility as good citizens to ensure that children of all ages from all neighborhoods are nurtured during their youthful years. We are called to stand up for what is right for them. We must not give up on them. Some individuals have come forward and are trying to make a difference. They need support. They can probably use some help from you. Ask yourself the question, have I done what I can to support the youth in our community? Criticism is not going to solve the problems. Coming together as a community will. Let's do what is right. Let's save all of our children. Thank you.
Just thank you for bringing that forward to us. That was moving and touching. And Dora, Miss Harris, she was a great and noble public servant, a true servant of the people. I can appreciate her views and thoughts on that. I wish she was here to see the conversion of the McCrary Gym into a city open-to-all facility in the soccer park that's going south of town. I wish there was a different resolve available to us for the Central School property. As you well know, it's encumbered with a challenging ownership question. I think that if that would ever be resolved, perhaps much could be entertained as to what could be the reserve that.
I think the ownership question has been resolved. The problem is the people that's there don't know how to do what's required of the facility and the property.
I accept that as well. It's a challenging situation. We can agree upon that. It deserves better than that. Certainly share that. But thank you very much for bringing that insightful message.
I want to thank you for allowing me the time to listen. As I said, this is her document, and I've been trying to find out when it was written so that I would know what she wrote it for. I could ask my brother-in-law, and I've gone into my wife's computer, try to see what data she had printed out there. But it's always good for all time. I'm sure we all seem to be in an age bracket that we can remember some songs that still apply today. When you think about a song like Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, it's still applicable today. So I'm just hopeful that something's done or said that may make a difference in the East Side for the people there. Thank you.
Some messages are timeless, and we appreciate it, Sheriff.
Mr. Biden, I would, especially in light of the press being here, I would love to see that submitted to the paper as a letter to the editor. With the hope that it could be printed.
appreciate it.
Thank you all.
And I have one thing, I'd really like to encourage you to approach the Asheboro Kiwanis Club. Our motto is serving the children of the world one community at a time. And Kiwanis in Asheboro has been very instrumental in building lots of facilities around. And all we have to do is get asked.
Okay.
Okay, so if somebody doesn't write us a letter, we don't know there's a need. So, we need those things. Now, we also need to be able to have a pancake day this year so that we can raise the money to do some things.
I didn't know that it's just open. There's something else that I did want to say to the city council from our organization, if it's all right.
Sure.
Our organization is the Eastside Local Development Corporation. Because I thought there was a time limit on how long a person could speak, I didn't bring the numbers with me, but I do intend to come to your meeting next month and give you all of the numbers. I can give you some off the top of my head. I'm here to say thank you to the city council for the grant that you've given us to conduct the programs that we do in the school system. We have a program in middle school. This is a career exposure program, and we work with all of the kids in North Asheboro Middle School, and we were able to, during the school year, conduct the program at North Asheboro Middle School to the whole 6th grade. And the total number of kids that participated was 296. During the time the school was also open, in the high school, we conduct 2 programs. One called the Lunch and Learn program, where we bring professionals from industries and situations where we can't take the students, i.e. the district attorney's office, because they have confidential files, confidential informants, and it's a whole lot of privacy in the areas with their data and records. And so we bring a district attorney into the high school to make presentations to the students, to let them know all of the different career directions related to district attorney or magistrate state's office and that environment. We've done the same with engineering, the military. We've had professional insurance agents, businesses, business representatives, and people from the hospitals, healthcare units and such. And over the period before school closed, we had 4 sessions, which is during the lunch times, and we had 175 high school students participate with that. The other program that we have is the Job Shadow program, in which the school system has accepted that as the community service component for the student as their high school requirement. And we had 17 students participating. Since school was closed, and we have not been able to enact all of the dates that we had set up, because we had 6 more speakers for the rest of the school year to speak, and we submitted a modification for the use of the funds to serve kids. Feed the children. Give me a second. I sometimes get emotional with all of this. But we decided to feed the children at, I don't know the name of the housing company.
Asheboro Housing
In
and
Asheboro
Co-Ridge Road
Housing.
Apartments.
It's which one?
Asheboro Housing and Co-Ridge Road Apartments.
Co-Ridge Road Apartments. And over 4 dates, we've been able to serve more than 600 meals. So this funding has come from city council, private individuals, and some businesses. And I want to thank you, because school is now serving lunches and breakfast Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that's not enough. And so we have committed to serving meals for the rest of the summer on Fridays to both of those areas. And I want to thank you again for the funding.
Thank you for that update, that information.
Can
Sure.
Mr. Blanton, you forgot the,
Oh,
Friday.
Friday, yes, that's right, that's the other. We also want to thank you for the permit to allow us to use the East Side Park to feed the community. We had a private donor for that particular situation. And I'm here also to announce that private donor has asked us to start a scholarship in this honor for the students on the East Side, a college scholarship for $500 a year for accepted freshmen in college, based on criteria that we'll have to agree with the student in the school system.
And also Ashburn, also Eastside Homes help with that.
Right.
I help with that here too.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Well, this time, as a matter of privilege, I'd like to declare that was my mother's 91st birthday.
Well, happy birthday to her.
Happy birthday.
We ain't gonna sing to her all.
No. Y'all might. I'm not doing dishonor and such. And as such, we had her party earlier this evening because we believe your second year in a row it was on city council. And much punch and nice tea was served. So we're going to take a brief break right now before we get into the report. Y'all excuse me. Much punch.
Okay. Chief. Reader's Digest first.
I don't know if I got it in me.
You came prepared to stay, didn't you?
A few pages, but we'll move on through it.
Chief, you got good publicity on the television I saw with your body cameras.
Right.
That was
She found me had on there.
Yeah. So they did good. They did good.
Did I think a Zoom or some interview.
Yeah.
It's got kind of different, but.
We're still rolling.
Thank y'all for that break. We're now prepared for thorough report.
Good evening, everyone in the council, Mr. Ogden, and everyone else in attendance. I'm gonna start with just an overview of our annual report, which you should have some documents there with you, and I'll just touch on them a little bit. 2019, we answered 25,453 calls, and almost 24.6 required incident reports to be done. That was slightly down from the year before.
And this year I had to run the numbers and we're running just slightly under where we was last year. And I believe a lot of that is due to the COVID, especially the first 3 or 4 weeks of it, our call volume was down. Average response time to calls is 5 minutes and 11 seconds. And that's just the officer's driving time. That does not count the time they're on the telephone with 911. But our response time is once they dispatch the call, it's 5 minutes and 11. We help ourselves on that by the laptops in the cars, because as 911's typing in the call, they can start seeing the information and start headed that direction.
So that time, I guess, that's all the city, including the satellite areas. That's every call.
That's every call, an average of every call, and it can be broke down by different zones if we have to. But that's 5 minutes has always been the try to get the 5 minute rule. Part 1 crimes, which is your most serious crimes, were reported 1547, which were down from the previous year. So we had a decrease of 4.8%. However, 3 big ones, the criminal homicide, forcible rape, and robbery, all slightly increased, which is troubling. I think this year so far, I believe we had 2 homicides, and I think last year it was 3. So we'll watch those numbers. Our most common arrest charges, failure to appear for court is the number one. A lot of people don't go to court, so they issue the paper on them, and then we have a warrant, and that's what we do. Drug charges, and that just shows the impact of drugs. 568 drug charges. And then larceny, assaults, and then you got drug paraphernalia in there. And these haven't changed. These top 10 or whatever has been about the same for all the previous years. And then DWI was 126 last year. Our traffic enforcement or crash data, we wrote 4,734 citations last year. Each citation, it could be 1 charge or it could be up to 2. But as you see, registration violations is the number 1 traffic charge, and inspections is right behind it. And usually they go hand in hand. If you hadn't inspected your car, chances are your tags are expired and they go hand in hand. So that's probably why you see that. Speeding, driving license revoked and no operator's license, and failure to reduce speed. That's mostly more than likely from a lot of rear end collisions, and that's the typical charge for the person at fault in those accidents. And you can see the rest of them. Improper backing, and that's also something else usually from wrecks. We investigated 1,864 traffic collisions last year, which is slightly up from the year before, but not as high as 2017. And you can see the totals there, and all those things are marked in your books, and I hope everyone got an annual report. If not, I have some more here. Crash data. As you can see, the number 1 place for accident in Asheboro is Dixie Drive. Number 2 is Fayetteville Street, Salisbury, the Interstate, and then Park Street. As you can see, 550 accidents on Dixie Drive. Maybe next year we'll see if that number, I would think, should decrease with the new road. So we shall see. One thing I thought was at Fayetteville Street, I haven't looked. I don't know if that's up or down from the year before, but I think, they did the work on Fayetteville Street, and that may have changed that number. But I think Fayetteville Street was still second last year also. drugs, drug seized, that's for the last 3 years. Controlled substance is anything that's not listed out there under it. Cocaine, marijuana, meth, heroin, and then prescription pills. Everything's in grams except for prescription pills, and they're by dosage units. And you can see a lot of times it fluctuates. It could be it's more popular that year, that particular drug, or it could be that we just made a bigger arrest where we took more weight in one year versus the other. And the biggest difference you'll see, marijuana was about the same in 17 and 19, but it was way down in 18. So that could have been from a lot of different reasons, but it could have been we took off larger quantities for those 2 years. But as you can see, drugs is still a big problem. This year, I think right now it seems like heroin and meth are your biggest ones going on right now. Animal control information, definitely proud of our animal control group, the 2 officers, 1,326 animal control calls, and then 321 incident reports taken. We took that 193 dogs to the shelter, 250 cats. Running at large is the #1 answered animal control call, and then also followed by the welfare checks of animals. So those 2 officers do stay pretty busy with their animal control.
They're pretty responsive to it.
They do well.
Yeah, they are.
Is there any questions on the annual report?
Anyone?
If not,
I have, my neighbor flagged me down yesterday morning, and I said that the chief's gonna be there, I'm gonna ask. Because we were younger, we used to get tickets for loud pipes. Log trucks run by my house, and they're not as loud as the cars that are riding up Old Liberty Road.
right,
There's a Mustang and a Camaro, I think they're in competition with a Honda Civic.
it can be the loudest.
They are just incredibly loud. You can't sit on your front porch and read the Courier Tribune in the morning because it is just ridiculously loud.
I haven't scratched one out in a while, but as far as I know, there still is a muffler charge out on the in the state. It's not charged a lot, but the call in, and I don't know, it could actually fall under the noise ordinance. I'm not for sure. I would have to look at it, but there's 2 options there that it could be done, because we hear a lot of the loud mufflers and things like that.
It's gotta be, I know it's not just on my street, it's everywhere.
You sure you
I try to turn my deaf ear to it, it's still loud. But you can hear them once they cross Fayetteville Street, or if they go either direction up Fayetteville Street, you know which way they've gone for a mile. You can hear when they hit the bypass. It's a little bit out of control.
Right. And like I said, I think there's 2 options for it, and I'd have to look into it, but I'm pretty sure it's still on the books as far as the law, and I have to read exactly what it says.
Mr. Cagle across the street will be happy to know that you.
All right.
And my concern as well.
Yes. Anything else on the annual report?
My general statement on noise is I don't like it unless I'm making it.
If not, I'd like to transition just a little bit into some current public concerns relating to the police department and what's going on right now with our community. So you'll just give me a little time here, but the death of George Floyd should never happen. When I viewed it on video, it was deeply disturbing, and it's not acceptable anywhere. What happened in Minneapolis does not represent the Asheboro Police Department. However, it has affected our department, but it's also affected the community. I did not ignore the calls for reform. I saw the protests firsthand locally and nationally on TV. I've met with community leaders. I've read the signs of protesters, and I assure you I've paid attention. I ordered a review of a number of policies and practices pertaining to the use of force, fair and impartial policing, crisis intervention, and distraction devices. Those policies have been updated and implemented. They were already in effect. We just reviewed them, made some revisions, and they're effective. One of the biggest concerns of the public, naturally, is our use of force policy and the use of force reporting. Both were in place and practiced since I've been employed at the police department for 28 and a half years. So they've been in place and we've been reporting it. It's just been tweaked and reviewed over a period of time. As things change, we change. Our use of force policy already addressed many areas of concern, such as force continuum, warning shots, de-escalation techniques, shooting at moving vehicles, and chokeholds, which you've all heard a lot about. One of the biggest topics of concern from the public was officers should have a duty to intervene when they observe unwanted, reckless, or excessive force and report the incident as well. This has exactly been added to our use of force policy. We had intervention in other places in the policy, but we clearly put it in the use of force policy now. So in a lot of this, we fed on what we saw. When addressing potential changes in our use of force policy, I referred to guidelines recommended by 8 Can't Wait, which is a group that basically for social justice and police reform. They did have 8 policies that can't wait on use of force, and that was one that guided me in this direction. I like to say we had a lot of them already in there, and then we clearly modified them to meet, which I believe those 8. So I did use that as a guide. Also, Raleigh PD, I think, used those, also looked at that site. Our use of force reporting is under review and will be revised in the near future. I feel like the state will mandate something on use of forces and get a more standard form or something, because technically, unless I call another agency and ask them, I can only compare Asheboro numbers throughout the years. So I feel like we're going to update that form, and I do feel like something standard would be coming from the state or something, where they keep a record of these use of forces. De-escalation techniques have been taught at the Asheboro Police Department for the last 2 years. We actually sent two sergeants, I believe, out of state to learn some de-escalation. They brought their training back and trained all the officers there at the PD on de-escalation. We have 10 officers slated to go to a de-escalated training at RCC, and they was gracious. RCC was to give us the 10 spots. That class is full because of what we're doing. Everybody more than likely is doing at other agencies. Almost 50% of our officers have received crisis intervention training, and 5 more slated to attend this month at Davidson. That's a 40-hour training, and that prepares officers to deal with people experiencing mental health crisis. And we have over half our officers have that training. And I would hope maybe in the reform that's being taught that maybe it will be part of the BLET program in the future. Prior to the civil unrest of our nation, I had already requested the funding for the implementation of body-worn cameras for our police officers, and that funding was secured, and I thank the council for that, and Mr. Ogden. We're hoping, depending, we've had a trial, we have a policy already. It's just to be order them up and how long it'll take us to get it. Talked to Assistant Chief Brown, who's did a lot of research on this program, and he's talked to the lady, and we're hoping we could have something running by Thanksgiving on our body-worn cameras. I plan to have an open forum in the near future. That's a lot of the calls and the emails I got, and to talk about some of the reform and some of our practices at the police department. However, I hadn't set a date because of the COVID, trying to wait it out. I don't know, but I will hold that forum whenever possible. Just a few more things. Currently, we have one vacant position. We have 2 in training, 3 more to start training on July the 16th. So far, I haven't had anyone resign due to the recent animosity towards police, which is not the case that surrounding agencies are in the nation. So I feel fortunate there. To get these 5 officers, we had only got 18 applications since March the 11th, and 6 moved forward in the process, and we hired 5. And I still have 1 more to go. So that's just the 3rd moves forward. I believe going forward, it will continue to get more difficult to recruit and retain well-qualified officers, which is what all the citizens in Asheboro desire, and that's what I desire. As a city, we need to be ahead of what's coming, I believe, and what's coming is it's going to be hard to find police officers. So I hope to plan on having conversations to focus on how we as a city can recruit, retain well-qualified officers. We must compete with the surrounding agencies by offering the latest training methods, good equipment, salaries, benefits, and educational incentives for all our public safety employees. Just to touch on that, I will say the last 3 sessions at RCC nighttime did not have enough people to make a basic law enforcement class. When I went to basic law enforcement in the early 90s, 39 people at night. The last 3 classes at night, not enough interest, nobody. The last day class at RCC, 11 people. And High Point sends a lot of them and uses RCC as like their academy. So the pool's getting smaller. I do expect at least 2 retirements within this budget year. So that'll be experienced people. And so we're going to have these openings. We're a very young department. Patrol Division has currently 2.61 years of experience, which does not include the supervisors on those teams. So it tells you how much pressure is on those supervisors when you've got basically a lot of young rookies patrolling, and the supervisors, they have to teach, monitor, and supervise those. I will say, just to touch on something else, another thing, 57% of the officers have college degrees. 30% have associate degrees, 24% have a bachelor's degree, and 3% have their master's. There are numerous academic articles that indicate a higher education and more experience equals less use of force by officers and reduced citizen complaints. And that's why I say that to say to others, if we can get ahead of it, we want to keep what we got so we can get the experience. Our most experienced people are in the jobs that have the higher liability, criminal investigation, drug investigations, and things like that. In closing, I believe we can improve the agency, and we will always strive to provide the best possible service for the citizens of Asheboro. I am thankful for all the calls and support that I've received over the last month, and I'm thankful to our council and the city manager and the mayor, if he's listening, for the support y'all give us. Thank you. Is there any questions?
Any questions for Chief? Chief, I'd just like to thank you for the job and leadership that you provided, the department has provided. One thing I think I'd like to share is in wake of the George Floyd fiasco, I couldn't even finish watching that video. That was just, it was just ridiculous, most heinous thing I've ever seen. I'm very proud that everything you brought before us is proactive. That Ashboro has not had or tolerated such a thing, that we will be reactive. I'm anxious to see the body cams. I think those provide for protection for all involved, both sides and all. I guess I can appreciate it as a reactive outcry, the thoughts of some that want to defund police departments and all like that, but personally, I can't imagine a society without law enforcement and rules of order. I have no idea where you take that thought to the next step. But anyway, thank y'all very much for everything you provided, and we're proud of you. Appreciate it, John.
Thank you for that.
Got you.
Thank you. I'm gonna yield to my friend.
We'll call Chief Willie Summers up for his presentation and commentary on July 4th fireworks. The amount of skill needed to successfully use that fireworks. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, how are you?
Excellent.
Doing wonderful.
I hate fireworks people upset your perfect record.
Good evening. Good evening. Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, Mr. Auburn. First, on behalf of Asheboro Fire Department, I would like to thank you for your support and encouragement, not only during the pandemic, but also throughout the year as we strive to exceed the expectations of the community. It has been an exciting and productive year. We responded to approximately 4,200 calls for service. This is a 23% increase over the previous year. We logged in over 13,000 training hours involving technical rescue, EMT, airport rescue, firefighting. Our average response time was 5 minutes and 12 seconds. Also, through our fire education and prevention programs, we interact with over 4,500 participants. In addition, since the implementation of Focus CPR, Asheboro Fire Department has been credited with 70 CPR saves. I can truly say Asheboro firefighters epitomize what it means to be public servants, putting others before self. It's an honor and a pleasure to serve alongside the men and women of the Asheboro Fire Department. The reports before you are 2019 annual report and the COVID-19 response. However, due to recent events, if I may, I would like to deviate somewhat and update the council on our strategic and operational plan relating to the COVID-19 responses. In addition, I would like to update the council on Asheboro Fire Department response to the recent protests and the firefighter recruitment program. In spite of the challenges this year, I can truly say the firefighters continue to respond with compassion, professionalism, and dedication. When the COVID-19 hit, the pandemic hit, we came up with 8 challenges. Number 1 was the unknown. It seems like information was changing daily, if not hourly. Dissemination of information, keeping everyone abreast of what the changes was taking place, especially with CDC and the health department. Social distancing. If you see one firefighter, you're going to see 3 or 4, so that was a challenge for us. Personnel safety and well-being. PPE equipment. Did we have enough PPE equipment? Was it adequate to protect our firefighters and their families from the virus? Operational effectiveness. How can we continue to serve the citizens of Asheboro effectively and efficiently? Response protocols. We work with Randolph Communications to alter our response protocols. Station sustainability. How we go about keeping the virus out of the stations and continue to respond and serve the citizens of Asheboro. And finally, community outreach. Our fire prevention and education program, which we're extremely proud of. How do we maintain that? So we put in operational guidelines based on the CDC and Randolph Public Health. To us, it became a living document. We would disseminate it weekly to the firefighters via email. And it would include protective measures, decon requirements, PPE, patient assessments. And if I may, when I talk about patient assessments, when we would approach a patient, we treated it as a hazmat incident. We had a hot zone, a warm zone, and a cold zone. And obviously the hot zone was when you interact with the patient. To facilitate social distancing, we relocated Engine 13 to the rec center. And I'd like to thank Jonathan for his generosity in allowing us to use the rec center to relocate Engine 13. Station 1 at any given time has over 17 firefighters and administration personnel. You can imagine trying to maintain social distancing. So this was a significant help as we practice social distancing. In addition, 2 members of the command staff were relocated. Deputy Chief Coughlin relocated to the Sunset Theater. Assistant Chief King relocated to the transfer station. We finally demobilized on June the 29th. However, Chief King remains at the transfer station. In the event that someone was to contract the virus at Station 1, at least we'll have someone in the command staff still available. The equipment you see before you, this is the equipment the patient would see. It looked like someone out of a space movie or something. But it protects not only the firefighter, but it also protects the citizens. You can see that the mask, N95 mask, Tyvek suit, gloves, and goggles, safety glasses. And I'm proud to say, to this date, no one in the fire department has contracted the virus. And I contribute that to the steps that we take each and every day. We're proud of this. We actually turned the gym, which is located in Station 1, we turned it into a decon facility with shower facilities. Whenever someone comes in contact with someone with the virus, he or she will be transported to the decon facility via the gator. At that time, he or she would take a shower, we would give them fresh clothing, and then we would bag their contaminated clothing, take it upstairs, wash it, and dry it. I think that plays a significant role in keeping the virus out of the fire station. And this is open to all city employees. Response protocols. We collaborated with Randolph Communications to minimize our APRA calls and our Bravo calls. And those are essentially non-emergency calls. For example, lifting assistance. In doing so, we limited our exposure, especially in the nursing home. We know those are our most vulnerable. So we tried to limit access to those areas. We decontaminated the station twice a day with the sprayer. And now this sprayer shows the ingenuity of the firefighters. They actually created this sprayer to decon the fire stations twice a day. And we also encourage good hygiene. For example, washing hands and not wearing your work shoes into the living area. I stated early on that we're proud of our fire prevention and our fire education program. So we partnered with Asheboro City Schools. The fire truck would follow the school bus on Fridays when they were delivering meals. And you know, kids still like to dig in the truck. And also, in the package, in the lunch package, we put a safety note in there. For example, fireworks safety. And we did that every year. Unfortunately, here recently, we had a major apartment fire. And we finally found out that the cause was fireworks. So, yeah.
Back to Clark's State.
From January to June 16th, we responded to 16 confirmed COVID calls. And when I say 16 confirmed COVID calls, these individuals had a severe case of the virus. So we responded to 16. As you can see, in April, we responded to 2. In May, 11. In June, we responded to 3.
So these were 911 calls.
Yes, sir. And
The folks were obviously very distressed by some symptom, and that's what it was.
exactly. And what typically takes place when 911 receives a call, they ask them a series of questions, and they'll relay it back to us, indicating you need to be in full PPE. This is a confirmed virus patient. And that goes to show the partnership that we have with Randolph Communications.
That's a facet I had yet to consider.
Yes. We are broken up into 3 districts. District 1 ran 4 calls, District 2, 5 calls, and District 3 ran 7 calls. Suspected cases, in addition to the 16 confirmed cases, we also responded to 19 suspected cases, which indicates that the patient was exhibiting one or more of the symptoms of COVID-19. Fever, persistent cough, headaches, chills, muscle pain. So we could never let our guard down. We could not afford to become complacent at any time. Operational effectiveness. I can say due to the commitment of the firefighters and the leadership of the company officers, the service to the citizens never wavered, not one iota. I'd like to transition over to the protest response. We identified 2 strategic goals in terms of the protest. Operational response. We actually increased our staffing to put an extra or an additional engine company in service. This engine company was dedicated primarily to the protest. We also put the Gator in service, and it was directed primarily to medical calls due to its mobility, the ability to get in and move around quickly. Unified Command. This played a significant role in the success throughout the operation. Everyone came together seamlessly. They worked well together. Typically, when you try to put a unified command in place, it doesn't work. But I can truly say it worked here. AFD, APD, Public Works, we utilized them extensively. City Hall, the mayor, and Mr. Osborne were ready and available. The Sheriff Department, Emergency Management, Randolph EMS. In fact, they staged at Station 1 throughout the entire protest. The prayer wall. I was extremely humbled with the prayer wall. It demonstrated the strength and resolve of the community working together for the betterment of the community as well as the betterment of society. This program I am extremely proud of. And first and foremost, I would like to thank the council for allowing us to increase our staff. We were able to hire 6 firefighters. We partnered with RCC, and this is the first time ever that Asheboro Fire Department had a recruit class through RCC. We had approximately 50 applicants for 6 positions. 50 applicants for 6 positions. And we think we put together a rigorous process, starting with the application itself, written test, physical agility test, and then the panel interview. And I think the panel interview was the most difficult for us to even choose the 6, because out of the 50, I think we could have hired 20, but I think we got the best of the best. And I truly thank you for the opportunity to increase our staff. The gear that you see the firefighters donning right there weighs approximately 45 pounds. I bring that to your attention because 50% of our recruits have no firefighting experience whatsoever. This was the place where I actually went over there and I watched them train with looking for a downed firefighter. This scenario was designed to build teamwork and confidence, keeping in mind that 50% of these individuals have never been involved in the fire service in their life. And the room temperature can get up to 600 degrees. 600 degrees. Now we know whether or not they truly want to be firefighters. In addition, this is a 75-foot area ladder. This is the time to determine if they are afraid of heights. So, but I can truly say and report that all six are going to make it through. Due to the uncertainty of the virus, we continue to evaluate our response capabilities and operational effectiveness. Have any questions?
Questions for Chief Summers, anyone?
Appreciate your good leadership, but the police department's got your response time by a second.
We're working on that.
I'm gonna take up for the chief. It's a little car. Let's see him get a family truck around there.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we just can't finish the budget process. Remember, we talked about the public safety is 50% of the general fund. That's basically what your property tax pays for. You see the professionalism represented here tonight. And this fire recruit class, from modeling on what we did on the 4 or 5 years ago, when we put young people into BLET and we paid for it, put our own uniforms on them, made them an Asheboro employee before they went. You know, all those people graduated now in our force doing the same thing. The only thing we couldn't get done this year was really wanted to go out and recruit in high school and at the community college, but unfortunately COVID closed all that. But this spring, if we get through this virus, we'll be doing that. And Chief Summers and his command team down there deserve a great deal of respect too. We've had we had the huge gas leak downtown, huge fire, and the pandemic, and the civil rights marches. So that doesn't include just the routine. And if you noticed, that routine's about 7 calls a day.
It's a lot.
And people don't, and the 25,000, 4,800, people don't think about that till it affects them, but they're out there all the time. And it just takes them out of professionalism, and as you see in there, it takes some courage.
But Chief Summers, we thank you very much, and I thank you for being here to accept the daunting task and job. I'm police to which I was thumbing through this, and I can't wait to read it in depth. You know, the Asheboro Fire Department has a long and rich history from its beginnings, and then, you know, certain people have a way of making certain things just more special. It's not just the fire department. You know, John McGlowan turned it into a local institution. I mean, you know, it was just synonymous. To follow along, continue that tradition, and lead it the way you have, I'm very proud of you accepting that responsibility, and proud of the way that it's being handled in the department and the progress we've made with it. But we still want to know the price of that truck.
It's the next one.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
In your packet, there's also a resolution for the council's consideration to purchase the used walk-in fire rescue truck. This is in the Dover, Delaware Fire Department, which we're a sister agency with.
And here's your price.
And there's your resolution. We would request the councils adopt the resolution by reference, so the city manager can sign the purchase agreement, which the city clerk has waiting on the council to approve the item.
Chief, I've got one question right quick before we go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because these numbers always seem to astound me. Do you have an approximation of the cost of that truck new?
Approximately, if you look at a rescue truck, and it's a walk-in rescue truck, you're looking anywhere from 500,000 to 700,000.
Fair to say,
And
it's
it's a-
a relatively good deal.
Yes, and it's a heavy duty rescue truck, as we communicate to the rescue.
Well, at this time, we'll entertain a motion to, for the resolution to purchase an additional fire truck, the walk-in rescue truck, by Ashboro Fire Department. Do I have a motion?
And this is a budgeted item. It was approved in your budget.
Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem, I move that we adopt a resolution authorizing the purchase of the walk-in rescue truck by reference.
We have a motion, Mr. Bell. We have a second.
Second.
Second, Ms. Snuggs. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Carter? Aye. Ms. Carter, aye. Motion passes. Can't wait to see the truck.
Thank you.
I don't want to need it, I just.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you, Chief.
Next up, have Season Engineer Michael Leonard for update on Zoo City Sportsplex. It's getting flatter, come on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. If you've been by the Sportsplex, you've been able to notice that grading is well underway. Things are still on schedule. The project is moving along really nicely. We're in the process of, or while in the process of applying for driveway connections from the NCDOT, we were required to do a traffic impact analysis, which was completed by the RNP. And I think y'all approved that a few months back. They performed the study and gave us these recommendations for an improved intersection. I'll go ahead and show you some photos of the Sportsplex. You can see that it's obviously getting quite a bit flatter. Couldn't tell you exactly how many cubic yards they've moved today.
What about rock, a lot of rock property on there?
So far to date, we've moved 647 cubic yards of rock. That's it. So.
Like it's two separate areas, pretty much.
And that was basically all under the volleyball courts. Once we got past that and blasted that, I don't believe we've hit anything else. We have hit, they're starting to get down to some weathered rock, but it's nothing that they can't rip with the dozer. So it seems to be doing pretty good so far. Knock on wood. These are just some other photos showing the property. Like Mr. Moffett said, that it is getting a lot flatter compared to what it was. And hopefully they'll be putting in one of the first retaining walls in the coming month or so. The RMP gave us a recommendation, or gave us a recommendation for the DOT for the intersection of Zoo Parkway and Old Cox Road. This was their recommendation. It's basically 200 feet in either direction plus a turn lane, which actually has quite a bit of asphalt and grading involved. And with further communication with the DOT, they also, the estimated cost for this with our crews would be $196, approximately just under $200,000. And speaking with the DOT further, we actually were able to discuss the possibility of a traffic circle instead, which would actually impact the area less and has significantly less asphalt. Actually kind of, I think, makes it. Do I need to go more? Actually makes it it's a little cheaper as well, and kind of makes it a nicer looking entrance to what we're looking for the park.
I've given that a lot of thought since I've looked at those two things. If everybody just come through this building today, I promise you I hit that intersection more than they did 3 or 4 times a day, not a ton. If the bypass wasn't coming online with the Zoo connector, I think I'd have a different opinion. I think the roundabout would impede the primary flow, probably more than you want to on those businesses. But in terms of just the traffic flow that I see, get people in and out of the sportsplex, I think that provides some advantages to get people in and out of the sportsplex. I think
I agree.
and I'm not necessarily a giant proponent of roundabouts. They tend to end up too small for, usually due to available land. Around the Walmart, that's the best example. You know, that can function better if it had more space. But I think there's some advantages to that roundabout in the flow that we're going to look at.
Well, the DOT seemed to be on board with this, so, if right now, this was kind of information right now, and we just kind of wanted to bring it before you, just to fill you in on how things were going.
But I really didn't want to see a stop.
And that was our concern too, that wind up impeding traffic. Somebody comes up to an unused intersection, they're the only vehicle there and they're waiting. All that does is make we impact the neighbors too much. And then, of course, you got to control the signal time and the calibration for when there are hopefully 1,500 people out there at a soccer event. So again, we think the roundabout serves both.
I've been to 4 HOA meetings at the Parkway South Townhouse group down there. And there's nothing I can do about the noise in the park itself, but the number one real question is what are they gonna do with that intersection up there and how we're gonna handle that? And I really feel like that is a safe and manageable traffic flow.
The DOT agreed when we showed them this, and actually, according to the TIA, because of the bypass, there were no improvements needed to the driveways themselves. It was just because we were right at the intersection that we had to do improvements to the transportation.
I'll make a nice focal point. I think it'll set the park off with it.
Michael,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Well, I don't know if there's any consideration for the senior adults that live that crossroads.
Consideration as far as traffic stuff. I think you might have broke up a little bit.
Yeah, I can hear it breaking up on that end. Yeah,
I think she's talking about senior traffic.
when I'm looking at it, there's about 74 independent living apartments.
You may want to answer that, Michael. That's one
With
of the
about
issues.
100 residents.
That's one of the issues about the traffic signal, is that traffic signal would stop their flow all the times in the single living apartments, in the crossroads.
So for the single living apartments, the traffic, if we were to put like a traffic signal there, our concern was that it would be impeding their flow completely, or actually stopping their flow completely from out of that Old Cox Road area. This was just one way to keep it kind of flowing without having to have any type of slow down or stop.
Does that include the housing development across the street?
That's the Parkway side.
That would be Parkway South. You're talking about down further south on Zoo Parkway. That would be Parkway South. And yes, that TIA study took into account all of those driveways and traffic from those areas.
Everyone gets to make a right turn now.
Right.
That, you know, without stacking in a turning lane. I mean, I really think it facilitates, especially the demographic at Crossroads and at Parkway primarily. I think there's some advantages there, and you keep moving for that amount of traffic. So it's busy in the mornings and 4 to 5:30 through there. I mean, it's horrendous if it was still the zoo thing that took care of itself between the virus and the new road.
Michael, how far are the entrances from the intersection, roughly?
So we had to go back, I believe, 200 feet.
They're not far.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you see, we went actually past this intersection, or the one up by, is it Caroline? What is the name of it now?
Elmhurst.
Elmhurst. It's up past that. Now, the other one, it doesn't go quite that far. There's a little more room, but we pushed the driveways as far back on the property. They're all the way out to the property line.
If you look at the other drawing card, it's got stacking and turning lanes.
Oh, which in here?
They're way back up there that driveway. You talking about, if you come out of there, the Zoo Parkway Drive and try to turn left, I mean, you got to cross the stack area, and that's an extra width. That's an issue.
I was trying to do it from the monitor.
And then if you come out on
I understand.
Thanks for my old man. I appreciate that.
A little bit blurry on that monitor.
If you come out on Cox Road and then there's a car wanting to turn left, you're gonna turn right. But you kind of get that now the way it's so wide. You can't see to turn out and turn right because the car on the left is. I think you're gonna keep everybody in a natural order with that. Good job. No, does this require any action on our part, or?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay, very good. Well, that brings us to item 11, the petition for Habitat for Humanity. Can you share that with us?
Thank you, sir. This portion of property contains 1.335 acres and is owned by Habitat for Humanity of Randolph County. You have in your packets a resolution prepared by the city attorney that directs the city clerk to take the required actions. Staff recommends adoption of this resolution by reference.
Do we have a motion to adopt the reference?
Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem, I move we adopt a resolution directing the city clerk to investigate by reference.
Motion by Mr. Bell, second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Squeers, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Carter?
Aye.
Ms. Carter is an aye. Motion is passed.
Thank you, sir. In anticipation of your action, the city clerk has prepared a certification of sufficiency of the petition. In light of this certification, you have in front of you a resolution prepared by the city attorney setting the public hearing date for August 6th, 2020, city council meeting on the question of the requested annexation. Staff recommends adoption of this by reference.
And do we have a motion to adopt a reference?
Move to adopt our reference.
Mr. Burke,
Second.
Ms. Snook, second, and all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Carter?
Aye.
Ms. Carter's aye. Motion passes. Next, we have item B on agenda item 11, petition of Kenneth Gallimore, Bridget Gallimore.
Thank you, sir. Due to a technical issue, this, that has come up with paperwork, this item is being withdrawn.
Withdrawn, okay.
Withdrawn. Sir.
It will come up at another date. This got resolves technical issues and plans.
So it's not lost, just they're gone.
There is no long-term issue. It's just
Okay, very
logistical
good.
matter.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we'll move quickly. Excuse me. Next, Wednesday, July the 15th, we've got a special joint meeting of the Ashburn City Council and Randolph County Board of Commissioners at the Ashburn Public Works Facility Conference Room. That's at 6 p.m. Joanna will call her, remind everybody next week. Normally, those last joint meetings have been in the Emergency Management Center, Emergency Center, down there on beside the sheriff's office and the jail. That is now the Emergency Operations Center for COVID. So all that space is being used, so our public work facility will allow us to social distance and meet in there. For the press, we will, there'll be a joint meeting, we'll go into closed session, and there'll be no action anticipated, but you will receive a notice of the meeting. And that is, of course, to discuss competitive healthcare activities on our behalf, Randolph Health. Ms. Carter, Joanne, and I will reach out to you next week to get you up to date, okay?
Okay.
All right.
That's
And,
good.
unfortunately, due to COVID, there's no other community events, just us, I guess. So the next council meetings, as per, is Thursday, August 6th. Thursday, August 6th. I do expect, sometime soon to hear about schools. I think the governor scheduled it for next Friday. So we'll just see. We'll respond as needed. We did until, most of you, I think I've told you before, but Fire Station 1 is actually 2 stations. You know, it's had engine 33, 13. I know some of you are scratching your head, how come we have 2 stations in 3 districts? So, yeah, not because we can't count, we actually have 2 stations in 1, but I joked with the mayor and Chief Summers that when they were in the gym, they had the nicest fire station in North Carolina. It's on pool, on shower facility.
Biggest rec center.
Yeah. So we're really anxious to get our recreation program back up and running and move forward. We're entering a vacation season for a lot of the employees between the start of school and this council meeting. There'll be a lot going on, so you don't see too many people around. We haven't all retired yet, we're just on vacation. I'll be gone tomorrow, working on my house. I didn't told the Mayor Pro Tem this afternoon, I didn't know when you had a daughter get married, you had to pay to fix your house up first before you pay for it.
The hits just keep
I told,
But you do not.
I do now, and I've been told not to ask how much, just do we still have any left? And I told the finance director, Ms. Reeves, you can, no need to look on the orbit for my retirement anytime soon. So that's all we have upcoming. Again, we'll be around. City Hall is still closed due to COVID-19 because we're still in phase 2. I don't know when we'll open that back up. It's our full intention to open it back up. It's difficult to serve the people, and we're just trying to make do the best we can. I'd be glad to answer any questions. If you cannot attend for next Wednesday, so for some reason, let me know and I'll try to give you all the information after the council. That should be a pretty interesting meeting. There's been most of you know, Randolph Health is in bankruptcy, again, for the audience. And there've been a lot of motions at the bankruptcy court the last 3 months or so. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Ogburn. We had some very, very interesting reports this evening with some new information from me. There's things that the fire department are coping with the COVID that was interesting development of thanking for their service and brave service. Glad our police department's doing well.
When the COVID started in Seattle, a nursing home in Seattle, firefighters kept going to the nursing home to assist with emergency management, paramedic, and they wound up getting 24 firefighters at the fire station sick with COVID. So we only have 55, so we can't.
That won't work for us.
We can't go down for a shift. So all this is really important.
We'll always be there in fire engine.
Right, and you see, we've run a lot of COVID calls.
We have.
We have.
But very, very impressed with their service and all. Keeping with tradition, Ms. Carter, do you have anything you'd like to share with us tonight?
I do not.
Ms. Burks?
Kudos to the staff of the One Arm Bandit claw truck. I had some work done in my house. I had a young man come over who lived in another municipality within the county, which will remain nameless, but he said there's no way they ever worked that efficiently there. So he put a lot of debris out over 3 or 4 days at my house, and they were right there to get it frequently. So it was good. Good job.
Katie?
I want to thank, John for allowing me to have to feed the homeless, at the park on Friday the 3rd. And I also like to thank the chief, for sending someone out to protect us, and the fire department for sending a truck out for the children. And, we fixed food for 200 people, and I think we had 75. So we are going to, Mr. Blige, who feeds, at the, Ashboro Housing and, Coleridge Road, we're gonna go in with him and take out food there. And if I can't have the, community watch, I don't know, nobody has told me, are we going to be able to have community watch?
I don't think so at this time.
Okay.
The National Night Out, I think, is scheduled for
Yeah, to me, that's
Tuesday,
not-
August the 4th, I believe, but I think that's gonna be pushed back till October. At least that's the national plan.
Gonna be pushed back to October.
Yes, ma'am. I believe
National
it's-
Night Out.
Yes, ma'am.
So we'll be, the food that was left over, we'll use that to help Elijah and feed feeding at Ashboro Housing and at, Coleridge Road Apartments.
Very good. Johnny?
Just very proud of our community. This has been, there are not enough words, there are not enough adjectives to describe what this year has been. And Ashboro, the community, the city, the police department, everyone involved has made me very proud to be from Ashboro.
Horace?
Echo the sentiments regarding our firefighters and our police department and their professionalism, as indicated in the reports, and they're every day just going about their business. Very proud of them. I'd like to also welcome Mr. Christo. It's good to see you.
Nice laptop.
Old school.
Mr. Sawyer?
I'm fine. I say the hearing the two chiefs talk, they do an excellent job of managing their employees and managing our city. It's impressive to hear Chief Library say that the things that there's just very few things that need tweaking, not implemented, but just tweaking with regard to the police department. And I think it's kept our city is calm, and it's I'm like Jane, I'm proud of that.
And just for the record, most of you know, but Mayor Smith had some elective surgery a week ago, and he's recovering well. I do expect him here next week. So he sends his regrets, and thanks everybody for their service. And I just remind you that if you don't show up for court, Chief Library's people won't come.
Apparently you're in good company, because a lot of people.
I think they're giving my folks a couple, quite a few rides.
They probably got a 1 minute call out on those big ones. So the court appearance show up.
A self-decided continuance. Well, again, we wish Mayor Smith a speedy recovery and return to us. Echoing what Jane said, it's most unusual year. And again, to mention my mom's birthday, but she thinks it's been the most unusual year of her life, and that's quite a spanking time. So, anyway, thank y'all for a productive meeting, and we stand adjourned. Here, here.